focusing on is to get a more grounded sense of what's happening, because a lot of these indicators are really not clear and they're not appropriate, and they need to be worked on, especially in the gender field. The indices need to be worked on a lot, and so that's I respect that work, but it's not the work that we're doing. So we're looking, yes, more at the family, the community, and maybe up to the provincial level, to some extent to the national level, and also how these institutions work. We're not looking at big companies and women in big companies. We're really focusing on low-income women, and they could be in urban areas. Like in Cambodia, we're looking at slum areas in Phnom Penh, for example, or isolated areas with ethnic minorities. I mean, lots of different types of cases. So, but it's pretty micro, I must say. But as I say, when I participate in social protection discussions or in empowerment discussions, that's the side that tends to be missing. So that's. Oh, but I just want to mention about the sites. We're also restricted in sites because they're, especially in a country like Vietnam, you can get permission to do research in some places, not others. So the sites also have to be accessible, and you know, that kind of constrains us. About education and training, yeah, this is extremely important, and we're. I think that will be. I mean, it will be. We're looking at different types of demographic groups, different levels of education. And the importance of training programs, and certainly, you know, not only gender trainings, but other types of training programs, and what seems to be important for actual progress, and what is less helpful. So that will come in terms of overall, like, kind of macro level education. I mean, that would be part of the policy recommendations. But as you say, it's more macro and less micro. So. But we're working, for example, in Myanmar, there's a group that's working on social protection, and they're trying to come up with policies that will also include, you know, health, education, employment, and several other important areas that will increase the security of people who are, and they're presenting it to the government in a way that it might have an impact. So we would like to contribute to that discussion as well in all 4 countries as much as possible. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nut1. So I would like to have the last comments from Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim, please. Dr. Kim, please use the microphone.
Thank you very much for your informative and knowledgeable presentation. I would like to know about something about Myanmar. Regarding the benefits of the project in Myanmar, you mentioned in your slide, for example, husband and children rely on me for earning income and covering expenditures. So do you mean that the woman became the leader of family? Because my knowledge is not much about gender. As I understand, because of the microfinance project like SRG, maybe the women's earnings can facilitate in their household. For example, they can provide their children by paying tuition fees and taking care of health and so on. So I would like to know, husband and children rely on me for earning income and covering expenditure means the woman become the leader of family. Yes.
That slide was actually from a study in the Delta area, which, as I understand, is relatively gender equitable, and within Myanmar. And that particular project was a microfinance project that would allow not only women but also men to engage in livelihoods after Nargis. And I wouldn't say that this type of participation necessarily makes a woman the head of the family at all. But we do find that, you know, there's an increase in her decision-making ability. But there are a lot of, I mean, it's very culturally contextual, because even if she ends up making a lot of the decisions, she will never say so. I don't think so. I mean, she won't say that I'm the head of the family now. I don't think there's anything like that in this context, from what I understand. We've done a lot of work in the past years of economic empowerment projects, for example, in South Asia, in India and in surrounding countries as well. And in some cases, you could say that the woman kind of becomes extremely important in the family, and the men rely on her. And so her position really does elevate, especially if the husband, let's say, is disabled or cannot work, then could even be a change in the kind of status within the family. But I don't think so. I think in most cases, whatever the culturally accepted relationship is, that stays as what people will say about themselves. But the reality may be something different. I mean, there was a case in Chin, for example, Chin State, where let's say the men would say that we're in charge of the family and we will never wash our children's clothes. And one of our graduate students went away and then came back, and the next time she came back, the man was washing the children's clothes. You know, so there's a kind of like official story, and then there's the real relationship. So I don't think the official story is going to change very much, not likely. But the real relationship may change over time, yes. I think so.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nut. And I would like to end the discussion now. So if you still have any other comments or discussion with Dr. Donna, sorry, she will be here with us the whole day. Thank you very much, Dr. Donna, for the presentation.
I think I probably broke this.
So time is exciting now. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have the first presentation from our MINSA students this morning, and also the first one to present his research studies. I would like to invite Mr. Thananat Singhathep. He is from National Institute of Development Administration, NIDA, from Thailand. He's going to present us his study on the effects of on the impacts of female chief executive officers on enabling firms' performance and development, evident from Thai manufacturers. His home advisor is Dr. Piriya Pumpiros. He is also present here, and we have home advisor Mr. Sanjay Ketchias. He is also here. Please welcome Mr. Thananat for the presentation.
Okay, good morning. สวัสดีครับ สบายดี Swasadai Mingalaba, honorable professor, teachers, and researchers, and my fellow MINSA scholars. And let me introduce myself. I'm a master degree student in management of the International College of Development Administration of, and it can be called in short, called NIDA. And before I go on with my research, I would like to refer to the study of Dr. Nut1 that concerns with women of low income. But this is another aspect of gender studies of the women in low and high income society. And you can see in the study of about the economic improvement of women that Thailand is not included, because generally we don't have an issue on accepting women into education and labor market. But our real issue, ongoing issue, is that is about opening opportunity for women to have a career advancement, to become professionals, to become leaders in the organization. So my study is about the impact of female CEOs on enabling firms' performance and development, and I provide evidence from Thai manufacturers. And by the way, the researchers in gender study are almost all the women, not a woman, and I'm a straight person. Be chill. Okay, this is the outline of my talk today. I begin with introduction, objectives of my study, relevant literatures that I've gone through, methodology and data, and then I provide analysis of the result of my analysis, and then the conclusions. Based on that conclusion, I come up with some policy recommendations, and then the last part will be limitations and implications for future research. Okay, to begin with the introduction, I would like to mention the number of female CEOs that is growing worldwide. And the studies of female-led firms has been done in developed countries, developing countries, and the least developed countries. For example, in the US, Canada, Australia, and Malaysia, Taiwan, Ghana, Laos, PDR. And these studies show mixed results of the impact of female leaders on the firm performance and development. However, there is very few studies in Thailand that investigate the impact of female leaders on the firm performance. Despite that, Thailand is home to the highest number of female CEOs in the world, according to the International Business Report 2013. So to fulfill this academic gap, the research of this objective of this study is to investigate the impact of female CEO on firm financial short-term performance, and also the effect on the firm long-term development in Thailand, and to provide policy recommendations based on the result that I found. And this is from the relevant literatures that I've gone through. Evidence has pointed that female leaders have a negative impact on firm performance. And the firm financial performance is, for example, sales, profits, and it also covers the employment growth comparing to male-led ones. And however, some study report that it is argued by some study that you take out all other variables, and it's found that they perform equally well to men. Even more, some study found that women actually perform better than men in this case. And the interesting thing that I found when I go through these studies is that for developed countries, the results are quite mixed. Some say that they perform better, some say that they perform equally, some say that they underperform. So the result is quite mixed in the developed country, but for developing countries and least developed countries, the result all go in one way, is that they have a negative impact on firm performance. And that's for short-term financial performance. Now, about the long-term development indicator, it is found that female-led firms tend to have less innovation and provide less employee training comparing to the male-led ones. And next, to continue with methodology and data that I use the secondary firm level data from the enterprise survey of World Bank in the year 2007. And the main benefit of this data set is that they are national representatives covering firms in 6 regions of Thailand, 1,043 firms. And survey questionnaires cover topics like, for example, firms' general information, governance, ownership structure, investment, technology, and financial, and so on. And the analysis method I use is the ORS, the ordinary least square, and binary regressions. And these are the variables that I use. Start with the dependent variables. As mentioned previously, I divide into 2 main types. The first one is the short-term financial performance, including annual sales of the previous year, annual profits of the previous year, and all of them are in a log scale. And the other set of variables are the long-term development indicators, including the new technology, the probability that they introduce the new technology in the production. It will be like in the questionnaire, it asks, do you introduce new technology in the previous year? Yes or no? And this is same to the probability of introducing new products and the probability that they provide employee training, and they're all in dummy variables. And here's the list of more independent variables that I use. The main one that I use is the female CEO. This contract in my model context to be one if they are female and zero otherwise. And I also include the CEO education starting from college education, higher vocational education, upper secondary education, and lower secondary education. And I also include the CEO experience, this is year of experience that he or she works in the industry, and the firm age since its beginning of operation, and the computer control, the percentage of computer control that will indicate the level of technology of the firm. Here's more for the list of independent variables that I used. You can see the handouts, and since I have quite a limited time here, I would like to focus on the analysis and the results of the study. Okay, about the general aspect of the data, as you can see here, the firms by their size, most of them are large, followed by medium and the small ones, and these firms are distributed according to the CEO genders. About 70% of them are led by men, and the rest 30% of them are led by women. And this graph shows that consistent with the previously mentioned International Business Report, that we have the highest number of female CEO comparing to other regions and other countries in the world. And this firm are distributed according to the firm led by female CEO are distributed according to the size. As you can see here, they tend to lead small firms, followed by the medium, and only 20% of them lead large firms. And now about the industry of the female firms, we found that governments have the highest number of female CEO, and regional wise, we found that in southern provinces is where the most female CEO are concentrated in. And next, about the mean of the independent variables, I would like to draw your attention to the red box here. I found that female CEO tend to have less than half of years of experience comparing to male CEO, and they tend to lead younger firm, and they use less technology in production, which can be seen by the average percentage of computer control. And by analyzing the OLS model, I have come up with the result that they have a significant negative impact on firm performance, and they tend to cause the 0.38 to 1.2% lower in sales and 0.18 to 0.5% lower in profits. These result is supported by other studies. And this result can be explained by that they have less human capital, in this case, less work experience, and they tend to lead younger firms. And it is pointed in existing studies that younger firms tend to have less startup financial capital, less human capital, and less technology in production. And so they have a less technological advancement, and is that they tend to be concentrated in small firms operating in small scale industries like garment. And the next interesting result that I have found is that I plot the interaction between female CEO and the small firms, and found that, this is the next result. I plot the interaction between female CEO and CEO college education, and found that if they have college education, their impact tends to be significantly positive on firm performance. They tend to cause 0.68% higher in sales, and this result is supported by other studies. However, currently there is no study that investigates why women that have higher education in Thailand turn out to be positive on firm performance. It could be interesting for study in the future. Okay, I would like to move on for my next result. I plot an interaction between female CEO and small business. And the interesting thing that I found is that female CEO have a significant positive impact on performance of SMEs. And they tend to cause 0.48 to 0.5% higher in sales, and this is supported by the study of Davis that the results explain that for SMEs, firms that led by women tend to have better market orientation. Okay, and next I've done the binary probit regression and found that first, female CEOs tend to have negative impact on firm innovation. However, the relationship is not statistically significant. And I found that they have a negative impact on the probability that they will provide employee training, or in simple way, they provide less employee training compared to the male-led firms. And they tend to cause approximately 0.06% lower probability of the firm to provide employee training. And this result is supported by the work of Rob and Watson, who point that women tend to lead small and medium firms, and these firms don't really recognize the benefit of employee training, and they don't have the resource to do so. So they have a negative impact on employee training. And in all of my model, I control for the industry and regional dummies. Based on this result, I come up with the conclusion that the female CEOs have a negative impact on firm performance. However, this negative impact is eliminated if they have a higher education. That means higher education for women, in this case, it works. And in the case of SME, they tend to perform better than male CEOs. However, I found that they have a lower probability to innovate, and they have a negative impact on employee training. And based on this conclusion, I come up with policy recommendations that government, especially the Ministry of Education, should encourage participation in the higher education among the firms led by female CEOs, and especially the female top managers that lead small and medium firms to participate in higher education, because it proved to be working in my results, and that it should also non-formal and formal education for skill development should be encouraged, and more emphasis should be put. The policy can be like, for example, a tax break, so that they have incentive to provide training for their employees. And the focus should be especially on the community enterprises in rural areas, because they tend to have less human capital, less financial capital, and less technological advancement. And to have the most impact, I would like to say that the firms in garment industry should be especially encouraged, because it's the industry where women leaders are more likely to be concentrated in. Okay, and about some limitations of this study is that I used cross-sectional data, which might not give a very accurate and consistent result if the different time frame is picked. And the data set is from 2007, which is not very updated. Also, so I use this limitation for suggestion for future research that you analyze time series data should give you a more accurate result and a more up-to-date data set. And in this case, I found that in the enterprise survey, the latest version of the data set is in the year 2007. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thananat. So the floor is open. Okay, we have Dr. Vecharat, please.
Thank you very much, Kun Thananat. It's very interesting, but the issue is very sensitive. And one thing I want to ask you, for your policy recommendation, is it really because of the gender that make the performance, that affect the performance of the company? But from your recommendation, it's about the education, about training. So if people, I mean, not only female, male also, if they get more training and more education, they will perform better. And I don't know, I'm not sure, and you can address that later. And I would like you to give us the overview rationale, how you explain that from your results. You said that female CEOs have negative impact on firm performance. And can you give us the overview rationale for us to see the picture? And you don't have to give me the answer now, but your answer should be more like politically correct, you know. Okay. So, because this is very sensitive issues. And from your findings, one of your findings, you said that female CEOs have a significant positive impact on about the rationale or the leading the SME, right? You said the female has better market orientation. Can you explain that, why male have less market orientation? And just give us the rationale.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vecharat. Do you have any answer?
Okay.
Okay, please.
I got these 3 questions here. I'll try to answer some of them. And the first one is that yes, college education also leads to positive performance of male CEO too. So not only women CEO that can benefit from the higher education, and that there are also some other significant factors in that will impact firm performance. And the third question.
Market orientation.
The market orientation is explained by there is et al. In this case, so there's currently no study, and my study it doesn't really involve that scope into my study. It could be an interesting topic for the next study. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Dr. Dani, and we have Mr. Sanjay, and then we have Dr. Buang, please. Dr. Dani.
Maybe just couple of comments. One is maybe a suggestion.
Can you speak a little?
You mentioned that you have control for some other variable, and I was thinking as you were presenting, exactly, I wanted to know a little more, for example, if you had control in terms of firm size and in terms of sectors, and I think maybe you did, and it's just that it wasn't there in the presentation. Maybe you could say a little bit more on that. I just wanted to add this, I think the point that Dr. mentioned is a really good point. And in a way, we would say that your study, like a lot of study that uses gender to understand difference, is not looking at, and we understand that, but then you have to be very careful how you phrase this, because here I think the point is it because of gender, or are there other things involved? For example, if, is it possible, because you look at a certain point in time, and the woman and the men that you're looking at come with a certain experience, with a certain background, and all of that is influenced by gender. For example, the level of legitimacy that the leader may have. For example, so if we look at the performance, is it possible that it's also linked to how people within the firm respond to the CEO, being a man or being a woman, which to some extent is a little bit out of the control of the person, the CEO. And so that we understand, and it's clear to me that it would be very difficult for you to go into that. I think you have to understand that your study fits within a lot of studies that tries to find difference, right? You take a group of men, you take a group of women, and then you say, oh, this is the difference I find. That means that female this and male are like that, and kind of lose the whole gender history behind it. Why women are like that, why men are like that. And it could also be, access to, well, I mean, the one you mentioned, of course, daily education, but even in terms of old attitudes in society, having towards one or the other. And so, yeah, it's more to, to be a little bit careful in the way that you phrase that, the findings, whether it's, is it that female CEO cannot do this, or male CEO can or cannot do this.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Philip Lundy, for the advice and some suggestions. We have Mr. Sanjay, please, and then we have Dr. Bua. Yes, Mr. Sanjay, please.
Thank you for being Dr. Sanjay. Well, just a couple of observations. Actually, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, having worked in the corporate sector. When we talk about, basically referring to your questions, when we talk about risk-taking, men are very high risk takers. They can take decisions on the spot. But when you compare women business leaders will not take impulsive decisions. They will rather think. I mean, I'm just reflecting at how Dr. Dona was also answering the questions. She was very cautious in her replies when she was trying to give on some of the gender issues, especially on the ground, how things are very different. So that's a very cautious response. If it was me presenting, I would go very differently.
You're from India, and if you look at Japanese corporations, it can take a long time to come to it.
Yes, yes. So yes, there is cultural responses, and then there are also how the responses take place. So that's the difference which comes in terms of that. So it, of course, when you have a lot of men employees under a female boss, they tend to think, the boss is not a risk taker, so why think of something, because the boss will anyways say no. That's the male psyche, and therefore there's a difference of how kind of innovation goes down if you have more male employees. If you have more female employees led by a female boss, the whole scenario will change. I can assure you of that. Coming to the talk about why sales are up. Again, it goes into the relationship building of how male and female respond. For men, when they are out in the field, they tend to make a relationship based on how they can make a pitch on the sale, how you can sell your product, and how other men will see the product as. Whereas for females, they more go for a relationship building, and therefore it's a bit longer term. So when you look at the sustainability of the relationship model for both, it will be longer for the female out in the field rather than for the men. Because for the men, it will be more with the product, and it will end with the product. it will not go too long. So that's my observation coming from a corporate sector and having worked on gender issues as well. That's how I would see it. That's
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I just, I want to respond to that because I think it's an interesting example because as a gender person, I would say we don't disagree with the findings, that the difference is defined, but you have to also maybe see most findings that there might be also, this is where gender is in fact taking place, is what you're finding is production, right, construction over time. As society is changing, you might find that in fact, like for example, the notion of risk-taking, right? I mean, research have shown that why are men taking more risks? And the way that we treat kids, for example, very small infants, the way that we let boys discover the world, the spatial world, in a very different way that we let girls, will affect, right? So then we have to think of it as a gender construction even behind those. So that's why I'm saying that my response is that I don't disagree with the findings, but then the way you explain, I said, be careful about attributing this to biological differences. That's what that's.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to keep everybody in mind that we try to discuss and make comments to the students' research as much as we can, so that because they need to revise those research and then they will submit these results to their universities. So I would like to have our discussion more on the student and their research result. Thank you very much. And so we will follow by the people who present. So we have Dr. Wu.
Yes.
Please keep it
Yes,
short.
I will keep it short. One is about the participants, research participants. Did you say that you selected like over 1,000 participants? Is that right? Firms. Okay. This one is based on the secondary source of data.
Correct.
Okay. Another one is that do you have also demographic characteristic of each woman, each CEO that you research?
In terms of the
Like in terms of the age, the family background, the of course education. I know that you have. Did you put that in? Because this kind of variable could affect their performance too. Okay. Okay. And another one that you have the slide analysis results. This I see that you not only discuss about your research result, but you also compare to literature, like studies about the people. So I would like to recommend you to put this as discussion section. Because discussion is the where we put about our result and how it support or contradict to the other studies that did previously. And another one, the last one, is about policy recommendations. I think this is very good. It has a lot of implication for capacity building because actually the MI focus on this. The reason I say that it's very good because here you found that the CEO with college have positive impact on firm performance, right? So this speaks a lot about education. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. We have Dr. Piriya, please. Dr. Piriya is the home advisor of Mr. Thananong.
Okay, thank you very much for the comments, and I think I have to speak something because I was paid to be here for these reasons. Okay, first of all, thanks for the comments. This is actually our first time, actually both of us, on doing research about gender, and both of us are male, so we are not sensitive with the issues. But anyway, yeah, thanks for the comments in terms of the issue sensitivities, and because maybe Tanara doesn't explain clearly about, I think he missed one of the part which is what level is the literature review. because we know that sensitive issues, and so that's why we have to review the studies of this issue as many as we can. And we try to review compared to starting from developed countries and also developing countries and also ASEAN. For ASEAN, only one country that have done this study in ASEAN is PDR. And this is going to be the second papers. And at the end, we already submit this paper to the Journal of Gender in Management, which is journal under ISI journal, and we hope for the good result. Anyway, come back to the comments from Dr. Washarat about your issues about, let's say, what trend education for male and female can have well, the different impact or not. Well, we say education improve performance, that's for sure. But from this result showing that even though the female has lower performance than male, but female with high education will have the marginal benefit of training more than male. For example, you train male and female, okay? The benefit or the total performance improved will be more in case of female. So that's come to the procedure recommendations that providing non-formal trainings or non-formal education is a part of the issues that female should be participate. And if you look at the statistics in Thailand, because of the personal involvement, let's say taking care of kids, as in household works, female are very much away from training. But if you look at the formal trainings in Thailand, higher education enrollment are more on female. So that's kind of the mix. So that means promoting educations for female has been quite successful in Thailand. But the problem is about after education, which is a more informal trainings and including the career advancement that's still lag behind. So that's what we pursue education to be focused on. And I think Thanana doesn't spend much time talking about the controlling variables, which has to be so many of things, including characteristic of females, that just only education, female education, also the experience that a female has been doing that. That's the only two control variables of female characteristic, because this is actually the firm level data. So this is going to be only one survey in Thailand that asks the gender of the CEO in the firm. Most of the studies talking about the female ownership. And we believe that the ownership in case of Thailand they don't say anything, because ownership usually will be exhibitions, which is more than male. So that's why we pick the female CEO, in which we believe that CEO should have more roles in operations, in terms of risk taking or risk averse in the roles. And that's why we consider about that risk taking or risk averse. And that's why we have two variables. Short-term variable, which is for performance, which is quite unclear whether risk taking increase performance or decrease performance. And that's why we pick another indicator, which is long-term performance, in which we use R&D investment, innovative investment, and the training, and we found negative result. So that's imply that in terms of long-term investment, female have negative result compared to men. That's also come back to answer the case that female become risk averse to invest in the future compared to men. Okay, so but anyway, this is actually the details that file out for the papers, and as always say, we are both men, and then we are not sensitive details. So thank you very much for comments, and we try to find the consistency of the findings comparing to the previous research articles in the world, and come back to finalize the paper. That's the one.
Thank you very much, Dr. Piriya. We have another 3 comments. I'm sorry, Sanjay, I would allow to have another 3, which is Dr. Piyas, and then we have Dr. Ngamnit, and then the last one is Dr. Wood. Okay, please, Dr. Piriya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hannah, for the presentation. But before that, I
Sorry, Dr. Piriya. Dr. Piriya, can you turn on this? Oh, okay.
When you make presentation, I kind of misunderstand that male or female have negative impact on the sale or performance of the firms. But after I listen to your advices, I kind of understand that actually it's female have low performance compared to males in terms of cell, not actually have negative impact. So when you interpret your result, you have to be careful that whether the female have negative impact to the cell or compared to male, because your independent variable is dummy variable. You just compare two things, right? One is the base, is the male, the other is female. So when you just have to be careful about that specific comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pia, for the comments. And Dr. Hamid, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I saw that you just use the binary or dummy, so it's a 1 and 0, right?
That's right.
Yeah. They have some program they call a structural equation model that you can use to see about the relationship between the variable, and you can compare the variables and you can see the relationship. And for this one, you use female as 1 and male as 0, and then you can see at the negative correlation. But if you change, let's say female is 0 and male is 1, maybe you can find a positive relationship. So this is just really about the number. And then I see that your variables, so you use a lot of dummy variables. So maybe dummy variable just only 1 and 0, right? So you can get a really small information for just only 1 and 0. But if you use the, let's say about the number of the education, so you can have many variable. I mean the variable of the education. For this one, you use just only dummy, so you can get very small information. So just for your further research, maybe you can try for the structural equation model that you can let many variables to reflect the effects for the firm. And your research is just about 2007. And how can you use your questionnaire? Because you use your data from 2007 and you use questionnaire. So what questionnaire do you use with the firm? You use from the 2004. You use your questionnaire. What firm do you use your questionnaire? Because you use the 2007 data. This is secondary data. Okay, so that's only for your further research. And your recommendation, you choose recommend your recommendation should be come from your study. For this one, I can recommend, I don't study, but I can recommend that, okay, you should do this. You correct, but I don't think this is from your research. Your recommend should come from your research, your result. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamid. Also, we have the last commenter, Dr. Wood, please, Dr. Wood.
Just excuse me, I would like to clarify the use of questionnaire. The questionnaire that I look at is the questionnaire used by the World Bank that when they do a survey. Yes. In the year 2007. That's right.
Okay, Dr. Wood, please.
Thank you, Nut. Thank you for your presentation. It's a nice presentation. I have some basic comments on this one. I would think that normally in objectives, we don't put policy recommendations as one of our objectives. Can you get what I said?
Can you repeat that?
The objectives of the study, normally we don't put policy recommendations as one of the objectives. You can just put it later on. I don't know, that's how you slides. As economists, I always ask conceptual model, because you come up with your statistical relationship between certain factor with certain factor, so you probably should should add a few para to explain how come you come out with these type of variables. Because it's very complicated, you know. I mean, and it's a lot of variables here, but is it covered factors that affecting the performance of the companies or what? For instance, in economics we say capital, labor, and they affect growth. So I think you should try to explain the concept behind the empirical variables that you have.